Mario Kart World has been out for a month and a half now and I haven't made a video on it. What's up with that? I don't know. Maybe I was playing it a little too much. And you know what? That's what's kind of got me making this video. I think I've played like 150 hours at this point, and I think about 120 of those were in the first 3 weeks. I did pretty much nothing but play Mario Kart World for a considerable amount of time, and I have a lot of opinions on the matter. Before this game came out, as it was revealed, I was like, man, this might be the most excited that I've ever been for a video game. So, you would think that I am absolutely in love with this game now that it has been out for a while and I've played it a lot. And to a degree, that is true. But there's also a lot of weird things going on with this game. And as usual, I'm very interested in talking about how other people have been talking about this game, because that seems to be what I enjoy most about talking about video games. I like talking about the games themselves, but I also like analyzing how other people are talking about it and what I think that they're getting right and wrong, what is truly understood about the game, and what is maybe going overlooked or not being understood quite well. I didn't script this video because, you know, it's just fun to just blah sometimes, and that's what I'm gonna do here. Strap in. This is probably going to be all over the place because I didn't script this, like I said, but I'm going to try to touch on all the different aspects that I am interested in about this game and the way people are talking about it. I think the introduction of being able to jump and bounce off of walls and ride walls is a fantastic addition and makes this game way more different than any other Mario Kart jump has ever been. It's generally been like a pretty straight line upwards in terms of the way that they've innovated and changed the game. They've never really took any massive leaps to make something so different. Like the jump from Mario Kart 8 to World is the biggest jump that the series has ever seen. Maybe you could also, obviously you could also say from Super Mario Kart to Mario Kart 64, pretty significant, but at this point, that's that's pretty far in the past. So since then, definitely the biggest jump. And I think that's pretty significant. Obviously, there's people that are being trolls online that probably haven't played the game for the most part, that are like, oh my god, look at Nintendo's putting out another Mario Kart and you're all buying it, whatever. Don't know what they're talking about, just being annoying. This game is very different. You can immediately feel the difference, not even just with the jumping and the rail grinding and stuff, but like just the physics of how your cart moves feels completely different. It's a lot more floaty, which is something that I use as a negative way to describe games most of the time. And honestly, you could argue that I'm using it in a negative light here. I do prefer the heavy, tight turns of Mario Kart 8, but this game has something different going on where I find it pretty interesting that the floatiness actually lends itself to you being able to move yourself in the air more, which lets you do a bunch of these different shortcuts and interesting moves, bouncing off of rails, going onto walls, riding things that don't really make sense to be able to ride. So all of that wouldn't be possible or as fun if you couldn't control yourself in air as much, which is why the floatiness makes sense. And it didn't take that long to get used to. It took like a couple of days of playing, and then I was like starting to understand. Even when you're driving in the water, felt a little off at first, but I actually heavily prefer the water controls in this game to anything previous, which I was very surprised by because I was assuming I wasn't gonna like it. But honestly, I love the water in this game, and like using the waves to bounce in and out and keep getting boosts. Even the way that it feels to drift on the water feels awkward at first, but once you get used to it, it feels great. So I'm giving high praise to these new systems of being able to wall ride, wall jump, grind to a lesser degree. The grinding is definitely the least interesting of these new additions. The wall riding and jumping is definitely way more interesting and way more fun. Grinding, I could take it or leave it. I'd probably leave it. If you gave me the option, I'd be like, no, get rid of that. Although it is pretty cool in a couple tracks like Airship Fortress, I think it does it in a really cool way where you can take extremely sharp turns by avoiding the track and going on the rails at the beginning of the race, which is, I like that aspect of it. But at the same time, that's only because it doesn't last super long. I would prefer that you were taking the corners sharply and like drifting around everything, and it takes away from that and makes it so that you don't have to do it. It's a different kind of skill, but it's more timing based of like when to jump and stuff. So there's still timing involved. I really like drifting, and the rails take away from the drifting. Drifting is not as important in this game, which is a bit of a disappointment for me, because that's always been my favorite part of Mario Kart. But this other aspect does help make up for it, because the wall jumping onto walls and then jumping off of walls is super cool and works very well. It's surprising. The problem here is, though, unfortunately, as someone who has become pretty good at this game and has been good at like every other Mario Kart, and I understand like the different levels of skill that are involved and like the different tiers of players that I've played against, all types of tiers of players, I think that this game somehow manages to be the easiest Mario Kart in a bad way and the hardest Mario Kart in a bad way at the same time. And this has been my biggest sticking point with this game that's been very hard to explain to people, because I'm contradicting myself the entire time that I'm trying to explain it. So the reason that I've been frustrated sometimes when playing this game, and why intermissions specifically are less fun, is because it is so easy for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing to be able to reach a decent placement, because it's very casual friendly, and it's very easy for somebody that is good playing against somebody that is not good to get destroyed accidentally or like out of their control and get sent back into like last place, straight up last place in a 24 player race, which has happened to me a few times, which just always feels really bad. And I know obviously people are gonna be like, skill issue or whatever, which there's always RNG in Mario Kart. Obviously, I've lost races in every other Mario Kart. It just feels particularly bad in this game because it happens more often. Not coming last specifically, but getting a significantly worse placement than how you did generally over the course of the race. And again, that tracks more often when you are playing with more people, because you are more likely to suddenly be hit by like 3 or 4 things in a row. When in past Mario Karts, with the amount of people, you'd either get hit by 1, maybe 2. In extremely rare cases, you could be hit by like 3 things in a row and then get absolutely destroyed. But that would be very rare. Now, it feels like you're definitely getting hit by something. You're likely going to get hit again. Like almost every time, you are rarely going to get only hit once by something. You're almost always going to get hit twice. You're frequently going to get hit a 3rd time. And then sometimes you might even get hit a 4th or 5th time, because there's so many people passing you by and taking advantage of the fact that you're an easy target. And again, that's because there's so many people. And that feels really bad. That's more fun for people that are playing the game in a more casual light or aren't very good, because they're just like, yeah, chaos, fuck everybody, yeah, which is fun. It's like, it is fun. But if you're trying to win, or even slightly taking it seriously, and you are good at the game, it just really sucks when that happens. More so than usual, I would say. So in that way, it feels as though it is easier for somebody who's not that great to be able to do a little bit better than usual, which I'm not even saying that's a negative thing, to be clear. I'm just pointing out that it is a thing, meaning this game is easier for people that aren't very good to do like okay in, and sometimes do pretty well because of the RNG. I think it's easier, but it's also way harder to master. Like, my God, the things that you have to do in this game to like race these tracks perfectly is insane. I've practiced some of them a lot and still can't do them properly. And they require a lot of precision to like take certain shortcuts. It's mostly, almost all of these things are to do with like taking shortcuts that involve jumping off the track or skipping over out of bounds sections in tracks. There's multiple of these. And not even the ones that are extremely hard. There's some that aren't even that hard, but there's like 2, 3, 4 of them in the track, and if you're not doing them, you're gonna fall behind. So at the same time as the game feeling too easy, especially in intermissions, because they accentuate the RNG, especially on the lead up to the track itself, but it's also the hardest, and that's gonna keep those other people not wanting to play, because they're never gonna be able to beat those other people. There's just such a weird thing going on here, which existed in past Mario Karts, but like people that were pretty good at the game could reasonably keep up and sometimes beat people that were actually really good, because the shortcuts and the strategies weren't like insanely hard to keep up with. But in this, like, unless you're studying every track second by second of what exactly you're supposed to be doing, and the fact there's so many different routes to take and so many very specific like poles and trees and stuff that you can bounce off of. The average person is going to have no idea what any of this is because it's not part of the track. It's more out of the way than it usually is, because for the most part in other Mario Kart games, you're following the track, you just have to be good at navigating the track. Sometimes you're taking some shortcuts, but for the most part, those are kind of obvious. And if not, you just have to have a good racing line. But in this, the racing line is sometimes just completely absurd and is not even a line. It's like some weird parkour thing where you're like, you jump over to a rail and then you bounce off a pole and then you bounce off a tree. And like, it's something you don't even need a mushroom for, so you can just consistently do it. And again, the average person, or even the person that's above average, might not even know that this exists, and they will just never catch the person that does know to do that. So I think there's a skill gap that is absolutely absurd in this game, which is not surprising based on the way that they implemented these tactics. I kind of expected it going in that it was going to have a skill gap like that. It's just weird because it seems like that was intentional. Like, obviously they implemented these things knowing that people were going to be able to take advantage of all these different crazy track skipping elements. But at the same time, they're trying to make it easier for people by doing the intermissions and stuff, kind of compacting everyone together a little bit more, making it easier for people that aren't as good to do better. So both of these things are happening at the same time. And I feel like it just it makes it so that it's difficult for what I normally appreciate about Mario Kart is that you can make a lobby and there's going to be people that are extremely good in that lobby. Maybe there's just a group of friends, or if I'm streaming, there's people that are very good. There's people that are like under very good. They're good. They're great. There's people that are good. There's people that are kind of new. You can put them all in the same lobby and they will mostly kind of end up in the same positions, but like there's going to be races where you're kind of like, trading spots. But in this game, it feels more like the mid-tier players and the low-tier players can sometimes switch spots because it's easier for the low tier players to be able to just RNG their way up into the middle. But then if you're not playing with 24 people, like those people, and again, if you're playing normal tracks, there's so many different layers to this. If you're playing normal tracks, then those top tier players are not getting touched. Never. You cannot catch them. And like, I don't think that that's fun for everyone else. And that kind of was the case in the past. I just don't think it was as much of a problem as it is now. It is easier for the extremely good people to consistently win in this game, and it is easier for the not so great players to like accidentally do kind of well. It's weird. I don't know how to explain this. I don't know if I'm making sense, but this is just what I've experienced over the past month and a half playing this game. And I don't know, like, I'm not even trying to say this is strictly positive that I'm saying or strictly negative. I'm just observing. This is just what I've observed. First of all, I need to mention that leading into this game, I was already concerned when I saw what they were doing with the open world. Immediately, my first thought was, that doesn't quite look like it's gonna be fun. Why would I want to drive on straight roads? That doesn't make any sense. Mario Kart is about doing laps. And honestly, a lot of the tracks that follow the formula in the past couple games where there's sections and you're not doing laps, I like less than the ones with laps. That's not always the case. Mount Wario is pretty good actually, but most of the other ones I just really don't care for, especially the tour ones. And it seemed like this was going more in that direction in some ways. And I was like, hopefully there is an option to do these tracks as tracks and not have to drive to them. It's a cool idea, but it's not something I want to do all the time, and it totally depends on how it's executed. Now again, before launch, I finally started to feel a little bit better because people had got hands-on with it and said that in versus mode there was a way to play the laps normally, and I was like, okay, I think we should be fine then. Clearly there will be options for you to be able to play the tracks normally, and everything will be good. And of course, it wasn't quite that great at launch. You had to pick random in online lobbies to be able to play 3-lap tracks. And then of course, a couple weeks ago, they patched it to make it even harder for that to happen. And unsurprisingly, there's a subset of people online that were very upset. Myself, I guess included, although I'm not the type to go and just like complain endlessly on Twitter about these things. Even on Twitch, like I was trying not to make too big of a deal about it. The thing is that I understand what they're trying to do here because I can see it from a bunch of different perspectives. The problem is the subset of people that are going to be really upset by this is very small, and most people that are casually playing Mario Kart which is most people that are playing Mario Kart, are not going to care or are going to be kind of indifferent to this change of pace because the intermission tracks are easier than the 3-lap tracks. They take less skill to do good in. It's easier to hang out in the top placements. Even if you don't end up winning, you can get to first more easily in an intermission track. Even if you then get hit back out of it and then somebody that really knows the game has been sitting in the back the entire time and speeds into first in the last 20 seconds. Doesn't matter because at least you got the taste of first place a couple times throughout the race. I could see that being more fun for somebody than consistently being in the back half for the entirety of all 3 laps of a normal race, which is more likely to happen in those. So for that reason, I see Nintendo looking at this situation and being like, we were trying to casualize this game more than it already was. Mario Kart's always been very casual, obviously. It's the type of game that anybody can play and enjoy. That's one of the selling points of the game, and something that I love about it, because you can play it with any type of person and everyone can get a different level of fun out of it, but it doesn't really matter how good you are at the game. But you can also put a lot of effort into learning how to play the game properly and get really good at it. And then from there you can get even better at it. And then from there you can get even better at it to the point where nobody's ever gonna beat you. And for all these different types of people that are gonna play something like Mario Kart, you do wanna try to appease everyone at once, but also keep in mind that those people that are extremely good and will strictly only want to do whatever takes the most skill is a very small amount of people. I joined the competitive lounge Discord or whatever recently, and I think it said that there was like 15,000 people in it. Let me go check actually. Seems like there's about 19,000 people in there right now. That seems like a lot of people. And that's obviously a lot of people that are very vocal about liking Mario Kart and wanting it to be taken a little more seriously, maybe in a little more of a fair and balanced competitive landscape. But 20,000 people is nothing compared to, I'm not quite sure how much Mario Kart World has sold at this point, but I'm assuming it's a couple million maybe? Because I know that the attach rate for it is insanely high to the Switch 2 itself. Anyways, 20,000 people, very small number. Very loud people, you're gonna see them complaining about this very openly. But does it really represent all of Mario Kart? No. And I say this as someone who is very interested in like getting good at Mario Kart and playing it at a little bit of a higher level, and heavily prefers the 3-lap tracks, wishes that there was other ways to make the game a little bit more fair and less reliant on bagging items, which unfortunately leads me to another point about this game that I will not quite get to yet because I still haven't finished talking about the last thing. My point is that Nintendo clearly sees that people that are more casual at the game, which is most people, are going to sign on, and I know that there's clearly a matchmaking thing going on where the better you are, the higher your number is, and you will get placed with people around your skill level to some degree. It's not a perfect system, and there's not a absolute massive amount of people to be able to take from to make these pools. But I can see people that are more casual with the game preferring the intermissions, because like I said, it's easier to do well, or it's at least easier to be presented with the illusion that you're doing well, even if you don't end up winning, if that makes sense. And then of course, the argument against that is that, well, you could just do 2 separate modes. And yeah, I mean, I guess that is the answer. Unfortunately, that's going to lead to splitting the player base, which they probably don't want to do, especially near the beginning of a game's life cycle, where again, there's not that many people playing it. You don't want to make it hard to find lobbies or hard for people to get into full lobbies, which obviously they're trying to push as much as possible. They don't want the game to look as though it's lacking in players. I'll get into it more with the rest of this video, but obviously I am on the side of the people that want more options and customization desperately. Definitely want that. I've been frustrated about that for decades at this point, going back to them doing things on the DS or the Wii Online, and then the Wii U, and then the Switch, just constantly putting out games with lackluster customization options for online multiplayer games, which doesn't make any sense because it helps the community thrive, helps the game stay alive longer, gives people more reason to keep playing. It just really doesn't make any sense, and it's very frustrating. And I've been frustrated with Nintendo in this regard for decades because they sometimes get certain things right. Like in Mario Tennis Aces, they had a really cool leaderboard and like tournament mode that actually functioned and makes sense, but then like they just don't put it in any other game. And also that game had other issues in it in terms of customization that were fixed in other games, but then those other games were missing things that were good in that game. Same thing with Smash and Mario Kart and other Mario sports games. It's like, you'd think they'd be learning lessons from each of these games and then being able to apply it, even if it's not the same studios, obviously. You have Next Level Games, you have Camelot, you have Nintendo themselves. Depends on who's making what, but still, they're obviously communicating, and they obviously could be supporting each other with ideas and saying like what actually works and what keeps people around. But no, they just keep like vaguely implementing things and then just completely forgetting about them and never doing them again. It doesn't make any sense. It's really annoying. Or they'll take like years to implement something, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe getting item customization multiple years after the game was out, which is like cool, but it's like, you'd think that something like that would have been nice to include a little bit earlier, because that does really help with the longevity of the game. And then again, now this game's missing it. It's like, are they just gonna add that later again? Probably, but like, what, you already had that figured out, so I don't know what we're doing here. Anyways, I haven't barely even actually talked about the game. So what was I saying? I was leading into something there. I definitely don't remember what it was. I'm not gonna go check. I'm sure I'll get there eventually. What I want to talk about a little bit is the controversy, I guess, over the single player portion or the open world aspect. I personally didn't really care what this did or didn't offer for the game in terms of like what I was going to get out of it or what was going to be missing or how they were going to implement this. I know a lot of people clearly were looking at this, I guess more so because it's a launch game and because Nintendo was really pushing it as like the game to get with the Switch 2, obviously, because it's basically the only relevant game coming out. I think that contributes to the way that people are treating this. But also, I think that it's Nintendo's own fault for pushing it this way and making this a big deal. They named the game after it, Mario Kart World. So obviously, the open world is going to be a main part of this game. It's going to be the focus for people that don't just want to play 3-lap tracks and go in circles online. Because otherwise, that's what you're getting out of this. Either you're playing it with people in person, you're doing split screen, which is awesome, or you're playing with people online. That's mostly how you're going to play the game. Maybe you'll do some of the single player stuff. In past Mario Karts, you'll get the 3 stars on the cups and stuff and then move on. Do some time trials, maybe if you're feeling a little frisky. Otherwise, you're gonna be racing online. But this game is like, no, we got this cool open world. Look, we're gonna tease, there's some things you can do. Oh, you might be able to find things. And I think because they were so vague about it, which they actually ended up not being vague. People were assuming they were being vague and that there would be more to it, but in reality, they were actually just showing us everything that was in the game. So I really don't know who's to blame here, whether it's people expecting too much or whether or not it actually came off as though Nintendo was promising too much. I don't know. I'm kind of on both sides of that. All I can speak from is my own personal thoughts, which is that I didn't really care either way because all I wanted to do was play online anyways. It didn't matter to me what was or wasn't part of this open world. Although it would have been a nice bonus if there was stuff to it, it really didn't matter. Because I love games like Burnout Paradise and I should love Forza Horizon, but I haven't truly given it a chance yet for some reason. I'm gonna get to that because I know it should be on this list of what I'm about to say. And then like Need for Speed Most Wanted, Need for Speed Unbound. There's a lot of great open world-ish racing games where you can kind of drive around and find challenges as you go, do different types of races on different streets and like collect vehicles in interesting ways and like level up and get money to buy new cars and stuff. And I love games like that that have progressions like that, where you can just find secrets everywhere and you're like breaking billboards and you're finding like secret alleys to find collectibles and stuff. Mario Kart World does some of this, but for the most part, it's kind of just open nothingness, and I can see why that would be disappointing to people, even myself, if I was expecting that it was going to be on the level of something like Burnout. I wasn't, though. I didn't place that expectation on it, and the fact that it's not there is not really that surprising to me. Are they going to update the game over time and add more interesting things like that? I'm not sure. I think that when they named the game Mario Kart World, for the most part, what they were trying to convey is that they were connecting all the tracks. Not that the things in between there was actually going to be interesting. Maybe they had the idea that that was the case, but I kind of don't think that they did. I think that they think that the interesting part is that the tracks are literally connected by roads. That's it. Doesn't matter what else is around. There's cool Easter eggs and stuff, and it's like thematically interesting how things transition in between the tracks. But I think that's just there to serve the overall theme of everything being connected. Not necessarily that it's an interesting world overall, but that it's interesting that these two things are connected. That's it. I don't know if it's our fault for placing certain expectations on this game, thinking that the whole thing was going to be interesting, or if it's their fault for making us think that. I don't know. I'm gonna leave that up to the individual to decide. I think that it's more player expectations at fault, which I find to be the case a lot of the time, honestly. Not gonna lie, I see that happen all the time, where I'm like, really? You thought that that was gonna be like the big selling point? You thought that that was gonna be important? Like, we're here to race in circles. That's what Mario Kart is. Unfortunately, they're also messing up on that part, which is really that's what makes this whole situation frustrating, is because like they didn't nail either of them. Even though I really like this game, after like 120 hours of the game, I'm like, I'm trying to like it. I do like it a lot, but now I've played it so much that I'm finding myself trying to convince myself that I truly love it when it's missing certain things that would make me truly love it. So I've been taking a little bit of a break from it. I see a lot of complaints about the way that characters are unlocked. I agree, it's silly, that could have been more interesting. The way that costumes are unlocked, I agree, it's silly, that should have been more interesting. But like I said, in the end, I truly don't care. I haven't unlocked most of the costumes. I only unlocked costumes for the characters that I actually care about, which is like 8 of them, 6 of them. So I don't really care. I don't even know if I unlocked all of the extra characters, like the enemies, because again, I don't really care. I'm not going to use them anyways, except Penguin. Penguin's pretty cool. It's pretty cute. Let's get into the core of this game, which I do think has a problem, and I don't know how to address it. For one, there's too many people on the track. 24 players, nah, not good. For the intermissions, it's kind of interesting. For Knockout Tour specifically, it actually is very good. I like the 24 players, works great. That mode shows how the connecting tracks actually make sense. There's not enough knockout tours. There should be more of them. You should be able to customize them. You should be able to pick where you're starting and where you're ending. You should be able to do a freaking 3-hour knockout tour if you want. Can you do that? No, I don't know why. I do know why. They never let you customize things. They're like, this is the way we designed it. You must do things exactly our way or else we are going to kill you. Don't know why they're like that. Anyways, 24 players is too much. It is not fun. I don't like it. In normal races, which again are difficult to do. 12 people is perfectly fine and works for the majority of the tracks. There's some tracks that are a little bit better because they're a little bit wider and it makes a little more sense that you can have more players on them, but also the ones that are like that are honestly just weaker tracks in general. The better tracks that are more traditional Mario Kart tracks where you're winding and there's a couple like interesting shortcuts and you're doing a lot of drifting and jumping and using the new mechanics to a certain degree, but not overusing them. Those tracks are best, honestly, with like 8 to 14 people or so. When I get in lobbies that are full of people, it just makes the items insufferable, frankly, and makes you feel more compelled to sit back with stronger items and wait to use them till the end, which is super annoying. And I wish that they would do something to counteract that. And it seems like they don't want people to do it because they tried patching it and fixing it in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to somewhat no avail because it still was a thing. But it seems like it's even more powerful in this game, especially when there's more people, because it's so easy to get pounded with like 4 items in a row and go from 1st to like 19th. Going from 1st to 19th in the span of like 5 seconds feels so much worse than going from like 1st to 5th in the span of 5 seconds, which could happen in Mario Kart 8. Like it just feels a little bit worse in this game. It feels way more punishing. And not punishing because you did something wrong, punishing because you got unlucky. And that is frustrating. And one of the ways around this, of course, is to just hoard your items until the end. Use a shock in the last 20 seconds, save a bullet or a mushroom, mega mushroom or a star. Try to dodge shocks at the end because you know somebody else is probably doing it. It's just very frustrating. There's a couple things that I think could straight up fix Mario Kart and make it way more interesting, which they will never do. But again, it would be something that would be neat to have as a side mode or something. One of them, I would love a mode where you earn points every 5 seconds based on what placement you're in. So guess what? You gotta try to do well the entire time. You can't just sit back and wait for the end and have it so that the only thing that matters is the last 15 seconds of the race. That is what it feels like in most of these tracks, especially the intermissions, because it literally does not matter until you get to the track itself. The other thing that I think would be pretty cool would be if, you know what, you hold your item for longer than like 8 seconds, it's gone. Sorry, can't do that. Like, one or both of those things would be it would change the game drastically and make it so people can't abuse the system like that and make the game not fun. And I'm kind of tired of being forced to play Mario Kart like that. because it's just not how I want to play Mario Kart. And the better the people are that you play against, the more that they do these things, because that is the best way to play Mario Kart. That second one's a little bit ridiculous. Just having your items taken away from you doesn't really make any sense. But I feel like they could implement something to actually try to stop people from doing this. But then the problem is that if something like that were implemented, if you actually are constantly trying to be in first in Mario Kart, you are going to be hammered with items non-stop because there's so many people. So again, there's too many people on the track to even make trying to race normally work, because you're gonna get hit so much and you can't really do anything about it. I don't know, there's a lot of different issues playing at each other here. But I do think a mode where you earned points based on your placement would be pretty cool, and it would change the game drastically. And I would very much so be down to play Mario Kart in that way, because it would essentially completely eliminate people's ability to sit back and hoard a lightning bolt for like 2 minutes straight, which is awesome, because that shouldn't be possible. You shouldn't be able to win by doing that, and that's like basically the best way to win, period, which is crazy. Depending on the track, of course. Some tracks you can actually get ahead quite a bit because there's not really shortcuts. It's dependent, obviously. I'm just speaking in general terms right now. And again, everything changes depending on whether you're playing competitive, whether you're playing against people that are very good but not playing competitively, whether you're playing against people that are just okay, or people that don't know what they're doing at all. You're going to get a completely different race depending on who you're playing with, of course, and your own skill level. That doesn't really need to be said, but I'm going to say it just in case. Overall, what do I think about this game? I honestly have no idea. I'm taking a little bit of a break from it. I'm trying to play it less now, and I'm going to kind of go in and out of it. I would love for them to make it so that I can play 12-player races on 3-lap tracks more consistently online with random people. That would be nice. Otherwise, what I have to do is make a private lobby or do competitive, and competitive is just so not fun because of the way that you have to play, again, like hoarding items and racing perfectly, but then also like being as annoying as possible and hitting people with lightning in the last 15 seconds. It's just predictable, and I don't love that way of playing. I wish that there was a different way that people did it. Anyways, I don't know if I missed any points that I wanted to hit, but I've been making this video for a very long time. It is probably a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. Hopefully you took something out of this. These are my impressions of Mario Kart World. Overall, I'm loving this game. Do I think that it is... People keep asking me, is it better than Mario Kart 8? And it's like, it is objectively better than Mario Kart 8, as most sequels usually are. Everything is, for the most part, getting better and better and better. But there's a certain core aspect of Mario Kart that is missing from this game, for me, which is like the importance of drifting. And also, I think that there's issues with the balancing. So right at this very second, like as a full package, do I think that it's a better game as the full package of the year's worth of updates and things that have gone into 8? No. Do I think it will end up being better? Yes. It is creatively a better and more interesting game because of all the things that they have going on. It's just kind of like, what is the experience that you want out of Mario Kart? Do you want chaos? Because this game is definitely better at chaos. Do you want like new interesting ideas from Mario Kart? This game definitely has that over every other Mario Kart. But do you want just like core racing? Then this game is not quite what Mario Kart 8 was in that way. Take from that what you will. I don't have any sort of final verdict or anything. This is gonna change over time, I'm sure. And I've had a lot of fun playing it. I've had some frustrations. There's all my thoughts. Anybody who made it through this entire video, feel free to comment banana, and I'll give you 5 bananas on the Twitch stream next time I see you. That doesn't make any sense to anybody that doesn't come to my streams. By the way, come to my streams, twitch.tv/dguns. Been streaming Bug Snacks recently. I was streaming a lot of Mario Kart. Been kind of stepping back from that. I'm gonna be streaming a lot of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Hopefully this video's out before that. Don't actually know if it will be, but I will be streaming a lot of that. Thank you all for watching, whatever this completely ridiculous rant was, and hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you to those that support me on Patreon: Hookie, Mex, Scion, Kinoth, Ham, BioBadger, Eddie, and Sven. And I'll see you next time. Oh no, I forgot where the track was. Oh! Oh. That horn. Holy, that horn saved me so bad. That person's about to collide into me with those red shells. Oh